Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Our mission today, well, it's to give you that mental shortcut to expertise. We're diving into your sources on fun-up games, chat and party. And look, this isn't just another app review. It's really an investigation into a pretty clever business model, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
We're going to unpack how this platform, which is seeing huge engagement, manages to successfully merge two quite distinct worlds. Interactive gaming and this deep real-time community building. The core idea seems to be this hybrid approach, using really established classic games almost as a vehicle for quite complex social networking. So the question for us is, how does this merger actually work? And crucially, what makes it so sticky for users? Why do they keep coming back?
Yeah, and what's really fascinating, I think, is that the application isn't just trying to be disposable entertainment. It's aiming to create a whole self-contained social ecosystem. So this deep dive, it should reveal how FunUp Games actually achieves that sort of three-part goal: party, play, and chat, all inside one cohesive user experience. And when you really look closely, the strategic choice of which games they offer, well, that's fundamentally tied to how they build their social success.
Okay, let's unpack that architecture then. Maybe we start with the play side, because when you think of a, cutting-edge gaming platform, you often imagine massive development budgets, maybe hyper-realistic graphics, but the sources suggest FunUp Games actually leans into the absolute classics.
Precisely. Yeah, they use games like Ludo, Jackaroo, Umo, Domino, Oki. These aren't exactly pushing the boundaries of mobile processing power, and that's a very calculated move. It's not accidental. The strategic thinking behind using these classic sort of low-fidelity games, it seems to be twofold. Universal accessibility and, maybe just as important, low cognitive load.
That makes perfect sense, actually. If you use Ludo, you don't have to spend time teaching millions of people complicated new rules, right?
Yeah, exactly.
They already know how to play, so they can jump straight into the social part. But then if the games are that simple, how do they stop people from just getting bored? How do they keep users engaged long term?
Well, that's where this idea of game as vehicle really comes into play. The sources are clear that while the foundation is classic, the platform itself is built for constant updates. Think new challenges, seasonal events, even rotating in new games. They're always trying to keep that competitive side fresh. But, and this is critical, the game is mostly the common ground. It's the reason people might log in initially, sure, but it's the social structure that makes them stay logged in for, well, hours potentially.
Got it. So the games hook you in, but the voice rooms are the glue that keeps you there. Okay, let's shift then. Let's talk about that social engine, the party and chat side, because this seems to be the real innovation setting the platform apart, these real-time voice rooms.
Yes, these rooms are essentially the digital equivalent of a community clubhouse or maybe a local pub. They are persistent audio spaces, and they exist independently of the actual gameplay. So you could be mid-game, talking strategy, or you could just be hanging out, logged in, purely socializing. That persistence is absolutely key to what some might call digital community persistence.
Yeah.
It means the social ties, the conversations, they don't just dissolve the second your Ludo match is over.
Yeah, I really appreciate that distinction, because lots of platforms have in-game voice chat, sure, but it usually vanishes once the match ends.
Right.
These voice rooms, they sound like they're designed for sustained interaction. They turn a quick game into potentially a much longer social session. And our sources, they actually break down the function of these rooms into three distinct categories of interaction. It shows how deeply engineered that social goal really is.
Yes, exactly. And you can see the complexity sort of builds with each category. The first level is, well, utility, basic stuff, discussing game strategies, cooperative or competitive chat, directly tied to what you're doing in the game.
Okay, utility is necessary, but it's still pretty transactional, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So here's where it seems the platform starts trying to build those more meaningful connections. The second key use, sharing life moments, and even emotional stories. That feels like a significant leap, going from discussing a move in dominoes to talking about a real-life event.
It really is. And you can imagine, right, a user finishes a round of, okay, maybe they lost, maybe they won, doesn't matter, but they stay in the room.
Yeah.
Why? Because they feel comfortable enough maybe to share news about, I don't know, a job promotion or maybe even a personal difficulty they're facing.
Yeah.
The whole environment fostered by that voice interaction, it's intended to encourage a certain level of vulnerability. It aims to move beyond just scores and winning towards a kind of shared emotional reality. And that dramatically deepens the connection users feel with each other.
And then the third use kind of ties it all together, really cementing the platform's core identity. It's about actively building connections and finding a genuine sense of community. It sounds less like they're just facilitating interaction and more like they're actively marketing themselves as a place to actually forge these longer-term emotional bonds.
Absolutely. And what really stands out is how success seems to be measured. It's not just by game downloads or daily active users in the traditional sense. It's also about the emotional investment of the user base. These voice rooms, they're the infrastructure that allows that emotional investment, that feeling of belonging, to really take root and flourish. And of course, once you have a user base that's emotionally invested in the community, well, that creates a pretty powerful opportunity for monetization, doesn't it?
Right, that strong emotional connection provides the perfect lead-in to the business side of things. If the goal is maximizing this life and emotional sharing, how do they actually translate that loyalty, that time spent into revenue?
Okay, let's shift focus now to their monetization strategy, which seems heavily centered around in-app purchases.
Exactly. If the community itself is, in a way, the real product, then the monetization has to be tied into things like status, appreciation, and visibility within that community. So, looking at the typical revenue structure for apps like this, we see a clear focus on buying virtual items or features with real money, items that enhance your standing or your experience inside that ecosystem.
Okay, I'm seeing sort of four main pillars of revenue detailed here in the sources.
Yeah.
Let's start with the foundation, virtual currency.
Yeah, that's the baseline. You purchase in-game currency, it could be coins, diamonds, whatever they call it. And that serves as the medium of exchange for pretty much everything else within the app. It just standardizes the whole transaction model. Okay, standard enough. Now, the second pillar, this seems to be where that social engineering really comes into focus, virtual gifts. So you spend real money to buy a digital item, and then you send it to another user, maybe in the voice room or on their profile feed. I get the emotional value, like showing appreciation. But doesn't this kind of system inherently risk creating an atmosphere where maybe only the users who spend money get the primary visibility or status?
That is precisely the critical tension of this model, and you hit the nail on the head. It's entirely strategic. Buying and sending these virtual gifts, it's probably the clearest financial translation of social hierarchy and emotional appreciation within that space. Think about it. In a real-time audio room, you might not know what someone looks like or what job they have in the real world, but you absolutely know who just sent the biggest, flashiest, most expensive virtual gift. Everyone sees it. And that instantly gives the sender visibility, maybe influence, certainly recognition from everyone else in that room. So the transaction isn't just a gift in the altruistic sense, it's also a performance of status. It directly leverages that human desire, to be appreciated, to belong, maybe to be seen as a high-value member of the community. And it channels that desire straight into cash for the platform.
Wow, okay, so money quite literally buys influence and recognition in this digital town square. It's a mechanism for signaling status that's constantly being reinforced through that audio interface, through who gets acknowledged. What about the other two pillars? What else makes up this comprehensive revenue structure?
Well, the third pillar involves things like upgraded features or memberships. These could be subscriptions, maybe one-time purchases that grant access to premium sort of quality of life improvements. Things like special profile borders, instantly marking you as a paying or maybe a long-time dedicated user, or exclusive access to certain rooms or features. And of course, the highly sought-after ad-free experience. These cater more to the dedicated user who really values convenience and those perhaps smaller but still visible social markers.
Right, convenience and subtle status signals. And finally, we circle back to the play element itself with game-related items.
Yes, the fourth category brings it back to the games. These are purchases offering specific advantages or maybe just aesthetic changes within those classic games. This could be buying power-ups to, say, improve your chances in Ludo, or getting unique custom themes for your game boards, making your setup look cooler, or other advantages specific to the competitive side of things. This makes sure that even the users who are primarily there for the competition, maybe they don't spend as much time in the voice rooms, they still have a clear pathway to spend money.
So what we're seeing then is a really quite well-articulated monetization strategy. It seems designed to cater to four different user motivations almost simultaneously. You've got the utility user needing currency, the status-seeking social user buying gifts, the convenience-focused dedicated user getting memberships, and the competitive gamer buying advantages. It's like a net designed to catch pretty much every type of user they manage to attract through that hybrid game and social model. Okay, so to quickly recap this deep dive, we've analyzed FunUp Games as, well, a really powerful example of modern social platform architecture. They quite brilliantly merged these established, simple games, Ludo, Domino, you name it, with deep real-time social networking tools, tools focused on community and emotional sharing, primarily through those persistent voice rooms. And the real brilliance, it seems, lies in making sure the monetization strategy feeds directly back into reinforcing the social hierarchy and the status dynamics within those very rooms.
Exactly. And if we try to connect this back to the bigger picture, maybe for final provocative thought for you listening, consider this. We're seeing the purchase of virtual gifts becoming a central, maybe the central currency for displaying influence and status within these often fleeting real-time audio environments. Now, this fundamentally alters how digital communities express value and build their social hierarchies, doesn't it? When wealth can be translated so instantaneously into social standing and very visible appreciation, what does that actually mean for the health, the authenticity of that community? So it raises a really important question for you, the learner. What stands out to you about that merging of status and currency? When the primary signals of influence and belonging are so directly tied to financial spending, especially in what starts as a low-stakes social game, how might that shift the dynamics of friendship and connection in these digital spaces as we move forward?
That is a huge question to chew on. Thank you for helping us really explore the strategic brilliance, but also the intricate mechanics driving this new wave of social gaming engagement. Hopefully, you now understand the full architecture, right? From that simple choice of classic games through to those complex status signals being bought and sold. We really appreciate you trusting us with your source material. We will catch you next time for the next deep dive.